It's Wednesday again. This is the Wednesday Night Mouse Party. I'm BFOS, and tonight we've got G Webs. How's it going, G Webs?
Good. Thanks for the link.
And DJ Playing Ice out there. Playing Doctor. How's it going?
It's going all right, man.
And Baron, how are you doing?
Doing good. Very good. Was that believable?
What's that?
Was that believable?
Sure. I'll believe you. Was that believable?
No.
So out there, we had DJ Play Nice was the first one. Oh, usually the first one out there. Weeing it up. G23, but his batteries ran down. He has to go recharge. Sergeant Joe Smith. Gizzard Gary. Roy Munson. Chris from the 740 out, and I forget where he's at. Out shooting long range with a bunch of guys. And at least one gal. M. Gabriel, gun websites. And Gary was asking, why does that mouse in the cartoon have his finger on the trigger? Bad trigger discipline?
That's how they used to do it.
He lives by his own terms.
Go watch war footage from World War II. Everyone has their fingers on the trigger. Safety's off.
Yeah, but
and they're just like walking around.
Also, you know, they're like 15-pound triggers, so it's a little different.
That's why the war ended.
Everybody's fingers got tired. I was there was a used gun at a gun shop. This was a couple of years ago, and I don't remember what it was, but God, it was like had to be like a 15-pound trigger on the semi-auto pistol. It was an older one.
It was striker fired.
No, it was hammer fired. It was really hard to pull that trigger. Wish I could remember what it was. I don't know. But I forgot to hang on here. Let me grab this, copy that, go over to that.
Is there going to be time between the first and second bracket of tonight's show to have a break and talk about the brackets on the weekend show?
We're still banned from doing brackets. Still working out the government told me to stop.
Have you filed an appeal?
Iron Road created a bracket in the Gilded server and asked for submissions to fill it out. Not a single submission. So I think that tells you everything you need to know.
There we go. So this week's poll, if you haven't voted, there's a link for it, and let me pin the message to the top. There we go. And it was, I guess I should share it while I'm talking about it too. Here. Give me a second. There we goes. How many U.S. states or territories have you visited? 1 to 5, 6 to 15, 16 to 32, 32 or more, or the only state I have been to is the state of confusion.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does traveling through the state count, or do you have to go to a location to visit in that state? You're not traveling through.
I kind of thought about that today, because if you're like in Washington and you fly to Florida, do you count all those states you flew over? I would say
over, no. Drive through, yes. And especially if you stop and get gas or do something.
If you leave bodily fluid in a state, I think that counts.
I think if you drive through it, because it's experiencing the state. Like you can drive through Iowa, for example, and never stop because of whatever. You got a car that didn't stop, or you're on a bus or something, right? Like going on a train through Iowa. You can know what Iowa's like, right? You can drive through Nebraska and see the cities and only stop for gas. But you know, you can have a conversation about Nebraska and you've experienced like how big the state is, or Delaware or whatever, right? So I think if you fly over it, maybe if you stopped at the airport, you could say something, but I don't think
Well,
flying over.
that's what Gary was asking. Do changing planes in the airport count? I would say yes.
I mean,
would
it counts
count
for being there, but yeah, but just for being there, not like for, you know what I mean? But yeah. I think you just have to drive through to be it count.
Because you've been there, but you haven't really visited.
Well, I would count that.
Yeah, but if you've been to the airport in Florida on your way to someplace, that still counts as being in Florida.
We have taken it into consideration, and we will allow it. What were you saying, DJ?
It's been clarified already. I think we are one accord then.
Oh, okay. I have been to 9, Washington, Oregon, California, Montana, Nevada, Minnesota, Samoa, and Guam, the 2 territories. Is that 9? Am I leaving some out? Idaho. I think that's all of them. All the Northwest states, Minnesota, Guam, and Samoa.
I'm at 6. And no, I will not say which ones.
Uh-oh. They're classified?
Yeah.
Mine is more like all except Maine and Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah, I figured you hit most of them on your tours. So
I've hit 40 something on mine, but when I was a little kid, we always drove and stuff. That's where I probably got the idea of liking driving. Although I didn't like it when I was a little kid, I do appreciate the country and driving.
X Adam 1 and Mike McClune are out there. Oops. There we go. I missed it. Mike McClune said he's 46 and he's never flown anywhere.
If you ever want to, I mean, and now it's getting lamer and lamer, but to experience it, I saw a couple of tricks. There are some tricks to get inexpensive plane tickets. So a lot of times if the plane's going somewhere anyway, and they haven't sold any ticket seats, you know, or there's a bunch of empty seats or any empty seats probably, and you're willing to just go someplace, like you're not, you know, I need to be here from these dates, but, you know, you're just interested in taking the adventure vacation type of thing. You can sometimes get flights very inexpensively. And if you can get a round trip, go somewhere, I mean, if you get the plane tickets cheap enough, then you can probably stay in a pretty nice hotel even, you know, or at least find some place to hang out inexpensively and then kind of improvise an adventure. Just a heads up, if you're interested in doing all that.
You could also go to the costume shop, get a Pan Am uniform, and then deadhead your way around the country.
Printing checks.
I can say I've flown on Pan Am.
I would have liked to have taken that. What's that thing called? The pointy looking plane that's fast?
Oh, the Concorde, the one that blew the tire.
What?
That's why they retired them. One of them blew the tire during takeoff and crashed.
Well, that part I didn't want to do, but flying really fast over the thing would have been cool.
Yeah, I had little plastic Pan Am wings. So they're long gone. I don't know whatever happened to them. So looking at the comments, Rolling Trip said, "Damn, I've never counted until now. Over 30 for me. everything east of the Mississippi except Maine and Rhode Island, then all over the Midwest. The goddamn bacon said, counting the states I've passed through, been pulled over in. DJ said, hashtag 35 if prenatal doesn't count. Tactical Maverick, does driving through count? If so, 11. That includes a layover in Atlanta. Abigail said Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri, Kentucky, Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Minnesota, Arkansas. Forgot about Tennessee. Hopefully this summer I'll make it out to Ontario.
If you counted how many states you've been pulled over in, not tickets, but just pulled over, I'll bet you I'm over 12. Because you get pulled over a lot, or at least I do.
She meant Ontario, Canada? Did we take over Canada yet?
You can count Canada, because back in the day, you could just drive to Canada and Mexico and stuff.
Isn't
NAFTA.
there's an Ontario in the U.S., isn't there?
I think if you live in Detroit,
California.
you drive to Canada a lot because it's right there somewhere.
Vanessa Kitty said every state except 5. Sergeant Joe Smith said I got 10. Malachi, Texas, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Georgia. He's excited about Georgia and Indiana. New York Outcast gave a thumbs up.
And what do you think that meant?
He chose not to answer but wanted to participate.
Does the thumb just count as 1? He's never left New York.
I don't know. Maybe he likes to hitchhike. And Gun Website said all but just a few. And I just realized I never even gave the results of the poll. Let me refresh it in case anybody else has voted here. And yeah, we had 3 more people vote. So 23% said 1 to 5 states. 32% said 6 to 15. 18% said 16 to 32. And 16% said 32 or more. 11% said they're confused.
What is the total states plus the territories? What is it, like 56? How many territories are there?
And it's
There's at least 4.
Virgin Islands, Guam,
Samoa, American Samoa.
Puerto Rico.
Rico.
I've got the map for the quarters, but that's upstairs.
Are the Aleutians something like that, or are that just Canada?
No, I think they're
Or,
a
I mean,
part of
Alaska.
Alaska.
That's Alaska, yeah. What about the Marshall Islands? We got those?
I don't think so.
Mm.
Moose said 19. Mike McClune said 18. Woods, I've been to Canada more than most states. Drinking age was 19. Mike McClune also said Ohio and Pennsylvania are the only states I've been pulled over in. Gary said 28 states. I like to go visit places, but I don't like being away from home. So I tend not to go places.
I looked it up. Would people like to guess how many territories we have? It's more than 6.
Well, they didn't make quarters for all of them.
13.
So we got one guess for 13.
Because there's like a lot, I think, if you count just territories, because we call them like major territories or something when we're talking the big ones, I think.
Yeah, there's 5 that are inhabited.
Oh, see, they're counting like where the islands in the middle of nowhere that nobody's even on that we claim. Yeah, see that's
Yeah,
what
like
it is.
Midway Islands. Yeah.
Or like there's ones that are, I guess they're wildlife refuges. Nobody's allowed to park on them, so they leave them for the critters.
Wake Island, we got that.
Oh, yeah. Sergeant Joseph said, "Do Army bases count?" There's a Navy base. God, what the hell is it called? The island is basically just a base. It's San something.
San Simon,
No, can't remember.
San Juan,
No, there is a San.
Luis.
There's San Juan Islands in the Puget Sound, but God, I can't think of it.
Are there any forts in like Seattle? Like we got in San Diego, there's old concrete forts from World War II still. Like, are there any embankments and
There's coastal emplacements.
Mhm.
that's what I mean? Yeah, they still exist. Then.
Fort Worden along the coast. They've got the around Port Hadlock. It's where they shot Officer and the Gentleman, the training part. It's pretty cool. You can go down in the tunnels, and see where the pop-up guns were.
That movie inspired me to not be a Navy officer.
But it's pretty cool. Yep, and then you can camp up there too. How's it going, Iron Road?
Nothing much. How about you? Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Just want to make sure.
We'll see if Iron Road can figure it out. How many U.S. territories does the United States have a claim on?
Have a claim on?
Mhm.
Let's see here. We have Guam, Puerto Rico.
I'll give you a hint. Same hint I gave them. It's more than 6.
I know we got some of the Aleutian, or not the Aleutian, but yeah. I think we got right around 8.
Barbecue's
Okay.
saying 267.
I think he might have misclicked. Or not. So it's
I
let's
can't
see.
name them all, but I think we have 8, and I should know this being a sailor.
17.
17. Wow.
So maybe you can answer. Just before you jumped in, I was trying to remember. There's a base in the Pacific. It's San something. That's the island is basically just a base. Do you know what it is?
Okay, do you know where Pacific, Atlantic
Pacific.
Ocean? It's in the Pacific,
Pacific.
and it's just it's just a military base that
Yeah,
made
small
a sail.
island that's basically just a base.
You sure it's not Wake Island?
No, it's not Wake Island. It's San something. Has a Hispanic name. But I cannot remember what it is.
I vaguely remember what you're talking about because I remember we used to have detachments out there.
Don't think it was Sanchez. There's a Two Live Moo was saying. So how many states have you been to? Or territories altogether?
Me altogether? I've been to, let's see here. Now, are we including like flyover, like when I had a layover at the airport?
As long as you were physically in that state, not just flying over.
Well, no, I'm not saying flight over. Like when I had a layover in the airport.
We're counting those.
We're counting those?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's see here. I know I've been to Washington, but are we counting home states too, or no?
Yep.
All right, so I already got
As
two
long as
there.
you've been there.
Only if you lived in your home state.
Here, flew. We had a layover in Georgia. Then I was in Pensacola, Florida. I know that for a fact. Flew from there to Texas.
Yeah, Wesley Foster got
Almost.
it. Diego Garcia. Thank you.
That doesn't have San in the name.
San Diego Garcia.
California. So I've been to a total of 9.
So is there? This is for everyone. Is there somewhere you haven't been that you really want to go?
That I haven't.
Probably lots of places. Like a
Canada.
state, like a state that I wanted to be to.
Yeah, state, or if there's, if you really have always wanted to go to Ireland, you could say Ireland.
I did at one point when I was still in the military, back when I was at Whidbey Island, and the drive was relatively short. I did want to go to visit Victoria, British Columbia, but that was before the whole lockdowns, and Trudeau showed his Castro's side of himself. And at the same time, if you're a military personnel, you have to talk with like travel, part of the command side, before you could actually even go there. And I had a passport. I mean, I could have gone. It's just that if something happened and your command didn't know that you were going there, it would get you in bigger trouble. But
For some reason,
so that's what kind of prevented me from really going over there.
Do Live Move said, "How about a state where you don't want to go?" For me, it's Hawaii. Why does Moo not want to go to Hawaii?
I think it's for the fact that
I've had an opportunity to go to Hawaii a couple of times, and I've never done it just because it's expensive, and I don't know. It feels like you go there and it'd be like a tourist thing. I'd want to go and like go camping or fishing or something,
waterlocked island is basically what it is.
or maybe not go to Honolulu. I'd want to go to just some place where somebody lives in Hawaii and visit them, and see what it's like to live there, not go to vacation there. If that makes sense.
I personally would like to go to go to Oahu Island, because that's where all the naval museums are. Aside
For
from
what are
the island of Oahu,
but what's from there? What do you say?
a lot of the naval, the U.S. Navy museums.
Oh, okay.
I like Hawaii. I enjoy Hawaii, but I've got family there. That
I think it would freak me out being in the middle of the ocean. Doesn't it freak you out being in the middle of the ocean knowing you can't swim back to shore?
not really. It's a big enough island where you don't think about it.
Okay.
I'd prefer if the plane crashed, they'd know where the smear of my body was instead of just, yeah, somewhere in the ocean. I don't know.
Like Guam
If
is
you-
small enough where you kind of do think about it, because when you're in the beach and you kind of walk out, it's pretty shallow, and then deep. Lots of sea slugs. You got to watch out.
Sea
for those.
slugs?
Yeah,
What does that mean?
they're sea slugs, sea cucumbers, kind of slugs, sea slugs.
So you're swimming along in shallow beaches, having a good time. Yay, I'm vacationing in the Pacific Ocean. And then a bunch of sea slugs grab onto you and pull you into the deep part. And then you can't get out and you're just falling deeper and deeper and deeper with the weight of sea slugs on you. Sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's it's beautiful, humid, so it's like being in a sauna. And it's coral beaches, so it's kind of real grainy, large grain sand. And if you dig in the sand, then you can find little pieces of coral. Kind of neat.
I thought you were
There,
gonna say you can find like
shells
bodies
and
from World
stuff?
War II.
I found a tank.
Is there like shells and like mollusks and things to eat, and or is it just like sand?
Just like sand, and then there'll be like a little, at least the
Crabs and snails and things?
geckos, lots of geckos.
But yeah, Oahu is where the Pearl Harbor is. It's the main island. It's the second at the second island from the top in the island chain. Because the very last one on the bottom is where all the national parks and volcanoes are.
There's a really neat
It's
military
also-
museum that I told G-Webs about it, but this was probably a couple years ago when you were one of your chats. That it's mixed in like with the hotels on the near the beach. And I found it because our hotel was next to it, and I went out. I was just walking around and kind of ran into it. There's like a Huey chopper on the roof. Pretty cool. They had different areas, different wars, and then they'd have a room set up kind of like a diorama. They had a little path, plexiglass, so underneath in their Vietnam one, so there's like punji sticks and stuff underneath there when you look down. Pretty cool little museum.
Little interesting fact, even to this day, even after the attack of Pearl Harbor, 81 years after the fact, the hull of the USS Arizona still leaks oil.
Oh, the cemetery at Punch Bowl, the Cemetery of the Pacific, or no, I can't remember the official name. That's where my dad is buried, is up there. And they make it really hard to get there because you can drive, but you're not supposed to. There's no buses that go to it, and taxis aren't allowed to hang out there. We took a taxi, but before we went up there, he took off his taxi sign off the roof, threw it in his trunk, so he could go up there and wait for us. But it's really neat. They've got a huge mosaic that shows battles of the Pacific in kind of a map. It's really neat. And then there's a spot where you can overlook and see like Diamond Head Beach. Down below. So if you ever get the chance and you're in Hawaii, go check it out. So M. Gabriel and Mike McClune. There was somebody else I thought. Pascal's Kelvin. I was asking why hasn't Canada attempted a coup? They're just too dang nice.
They were too busy honking their trucks.
They're all playing hockey. Gary corrected himself. He said he's been to 30 states.
Ooh, man. Put a lot of miles on yourself there, Gizzard.
Well, he's like 97 years old, right?
Something like that.
I got a Pearl Harbor question. Best Pearl Harbor movie? What do you think? It's definitely not Pearl Harbor.
No, that movie was awful.
I saw Midway.
Tora.
That one's pretty good.
My friend's dad was in it. There's one of the scenes where a bunch of sailors go jumping off the end of a pier during the attack. And he said the movie company didn't have enough uniforms, so they hired a bunch of sailors to wear their uniforms and jump off the pier.
Apparently, Alec Baldwin was in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, he was Doolittle, right? From the Doolittle raid.
He was actually Lieutenant Colonel. Yep, he played Lieutenant Colonel Doolittle.
Yeah, I don't really remember much about the movie other than it sucked. So,
I kind of liked it. I remember seeing. I think I remember seeing it for the first time, but Midway
movie?
severely outpaces it by a lot.
Pearl Harbor.
Ben Affleck. What's the other
Yeah.
guy's name?
I don't hate it as much as everybody else, but
Yeah, you had
It's not that
Josh Hartnett,
Hmm.
Michael Bay, maybe.
Sergeant Joe Smith said, "Final Countdown, best Pearl Harbor movie." I haven't seen the movie, but I read the book. I like the book.
what?
I know the
Great
song.
movie.
What? Holy moly. It's one of the best movies with its access to an aircraft carrier and just showing you aircraft carrier stuff. It's one of the best aircraft carrier movies that we got.
I could definitely tell by looking at some of the pictures of not Ben Affleck, but Alec Baldwin and the pictures taken for the 2001 Pearl Harbor. He definitely looks like more like a jerk personality type.
He always plays a jerk.
It's because he is a jerk. Because Gary said if you count TV miniseries, War and Remembrance,
Never seen that.
I remember it being a thing. I don't remember anything about it though.
Are we talking our Pearl Harbor movies?
Hmm. How about Battleship? Anyone a fan of that?
I didn't see it.
Matt likes it.
It's alright if you like,
Hmm.
a lot of guns, going off.
I like one part of that movie, but I don't like the movie.
The part where where he drops Port Anchor and it just basically just makes the frickin' Missouri do like a frickin' car drift would not happen at all. In order for in order to make a hard turn like that, you would want to do a hard left rudder and kill the engine.
I have been on the Missouri when it was in mothball.
I am immediately jealous.
When
of
it
you.
was in Bremerton. I don't remember anything about it except they had a cigarette machine. For some reason, I just remember the old cigarette machine with the pull knob.
Hmm.
Where is it now?
It's in Oahu.
Okay.
Yeah, they moved
Hawaii.
it to Hawaii so it would be the
It's-
beginning and the end of the war in the same
It's-
place.
Yeah,
I figured they were going to sell it for a penny and scrap it.
Nope, because it's right next to the Missouri, or not the Missouri, but the Arizona memorial.
Yeah, the Navy loses money scrapping metal. That's one of the jobs that I've had in my lifetime was working at the shipyard, and they would bring in the decommissioned submarines. They cut them up, and then our shop would go in and then remove all the hazardous materials like the asbestos and PCBs and
Yep.
stuff. And they would make, when they started it, they would make $1 million per sub in scrap metal but they flooded the market to where they were losing $1 million per sub.
It's almost always cheaper for the Navy to decommission it by sinking it.
Yeah, well, we're getting rid of them to comply with treaties, I'm sure, not just to save money or try to be economical.
I kind of disagree with this Google search. It says the USS New Jersey is the most decorated battleship in Navy history. Personally, I think the New Jersey didn't really take that big of a part in World War II. The Texas, on the other hand, that's a ship. I think it alone in World War II alone, the Texas got 9 battle stars.
Yeah, when I went to Hawaii, I didn't go to the memorial. I would like to go to it sometime. But I didn't get the chance to. We flew over it, so I could see it from the plane, but haven't actually gone to it.
Apparently, in the combination of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Lebanon, the Persian Gulf War, New Jersey earned a total of 19 battle stars. But the Texas earned 5, all 5 coming from World War II alone. But the most decorated warship of the all time, on the other hand, is the USS Enterprise, known as the Big. Fun fact, though.
Because they had to fight the Klingons all the time.
Fun fact, though, if you guys go onto the website for USS Texas and you buy one of their paperweights are actually made out of the metal out of the ship. And by actively buying from their gift store, you're actually supporting the museum to keep the ship from kind of rotting away, because there was a big concern about letting this ship just go from a museum to get decommed, and it would have been the first to ever go from museum ship to ever go from active to museum to actually decommed and sunk.
I got a trivia question for y'all. What is the oldest still active U.S. military ship?
That would be... It's British, I know that.
The Constitution.
I was going to
Yep.
say Constitution.
It's not the USS Constitution, I think, actually. It's a British ship, actually.
Well, I said U.S. military.
Oh, U.S. military? Then
Mhm.
technically, yes, the Constitution.
I've seen some show where they found some, I don't think it was Viking, but old ass ship that was powered by oars and shit, 3 rows of oars type of shit. They found it in some mud somewhere. I don't know if anybody's seen this or if it's a big deal, but that
Is
was
that
an old ass ship.
They've got the museum just for that ship. Is that the
Yep.
one?
Yeah, they put it in a
So they launched it and it sunk immediately, and then
yeah, it was in
into mud.
pristine condition.
Yeah.
There was
But
one...
because it was the last of that type, right? It was so big and obnoxious, and then 5 minutes later they came out with a different kind of boat. So they're like, I guess it's not worth pulling it out, or maybe they couldn't. I don't remember the details. But anyway, I think it was that I was watching, and it made me think that for 300 years there was those boats with the big sails, clipper ships and shit. For 300 years, that was what everybody went around in. 300 years. So for generations and generations, everybody was like, well, I guess this is the fastest we'll ever go. It's been 200 years of this boat. This is the end of technology, these big ass boats.
Yeah, if you want to go faster, you'd have more sails.
Yeah, and there was only so much they could do or something, right? They got like to some point
Yep.
where they're like, okay, if we get bigger than this, then it doesn't work anymore. So this is this, they could change the shape or something, but this is about as big as we can get. And yeah, it's crazy. And that's when guns were just, flintlocks and shit. We didn't have percussion caps yet.
This
Pascal's
make me want to buy a blunderbuss.
Pascal's Kelvin said USS Texas might be in 3 world wars. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. And M. Gabriel said, I spend a lot of time staring at my navel.
Fuzzy navel.
It's a belly button joke.
Mike McLuhan said, remember watching an episode of Modern Marvels about recovering scrap from naval vessels. It was really interesting to see inside the subs, especially the old ones, like the World War II one. There was some that were probably just after World War II, and how small and cramped they were inside.
They're tiny.
Yeah. And then the more modern ones were, we're cutting them. They cut up these large sections to give to us, and then we work on them, and then there was parts where, I'm cutting 2-inch thick pieces of hull with a Sawzall. You kind of zip right through it with a good blade. Had the launch tubes were insulated with graphite tiles, and to take them off, they tried. There's a Donnie and myself would always get put on the experimental stuff to try and find faster techniques. Partly we got in trouble, so they kept us together so they could watch both of us at the same time. And then they would put us on all these experimental projects and stuff. But they took a section of launch tube, put it on rollers, and there's a welder with a rosebud torch heating the outside while we're in the inside, because heating the metal to try and loosen up the tiles as we're trying to remove these graphite tiles as it's turning. That wasn't fun. They've been in between the 2 sections of hull in the submarine. It's pretty tight. And if you drop something, it goes all the way down to the bottom.
What separates them then? Like a bunch of bolts or something? Like standoffs or something?
Yeah, there's a metal parts that,
Or like ribs?
Yeah, something like that.
But if you could get jammed in there, you'd fly all the way to the bottom and never get out.
Yeah, you'd be in trouble. I mean, it was a squeeze to get in there.
That's why I never really go in between the layers of submarine walls.
Yeah, I got challenged. Donnie and I were walking along, and they were refueling. I can't remember if it was like a destroyer. It was, and there's always Marines that guard the ship while they're refueling.
Yep.
And he stopped me and challenged me because I didn't have my badge on. It had come off in my Tyvek suit. We had just come from, working, and then you bundle up all your stuff, put it in the garbage bag, and it had gotten bundled up in the garbage bag. So I had to run back and then find my badge so I didn't get smashed by the Marine.
He wouldn't smash you. He would just forcibly made you eat crayons.
But it was interesting. Interesting job to do.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm happy about my job choice when I was in, is that I picked an aviation rate, not a surface rate, so I didn't have to worry about dying in a pressurized tube underwater.
It's you can always tell who's a submariner because they're monotone, because you have to be quiet and monotone. They talk.
I don't know much about submarine procedures, but I know like whenever they're trying to like to rig the ship for ultra quiet, it's basically all unnecessary noise. You have to like bunker down or whatever, and like all rates that are not necessary for conducting like warfare, like shooting torpedoes or Mosses or AGMs and the sort, and just controlling the direction of the submarine. You're supposed to get like quite literally in the fetal position and just not move.
Gunmetal Guy USA is out there listening.
At least so I was told.
Yeah, I haven't been on an active submarine, just the ones that were being cut up.
You never take any souvenirs? Wink, wink.
No, that would be illegal. So then you're dealing with federal law. So there is one time one of the supervisor comes over and finds Donnie and myself, and he goes, "I don't know how you guys pulled this, but they want you to go get a truck and then go over." There was over by the Belfair Airport, so it was off base. There was a spill, hazardous material spill. It's like they want you to go over there for the cleanup. So went and got a truck, went down, and it wasn't even a spill. There were some big pipes that still had asbestos gaskets on it, and they considered that a spill. So we just had to go scrape those off. Wasn't a big deal. One of the sucky things is all the training that we go through for the like asbestos, dealing with asbestos and stuff, doesn't transfer to civilians. So you're certified to work for the base, but it doesn't certify you in the civilian world.
Is it because asbestos is different in a house or something, or is it different than in a boat, or is it because of like the level of scrutiny or something that you had to deal with?
I don't know. They didn't tell us why. They just told us that's the way it is.
That's weird. You should have been. Well, then again, were you like a contracted civilian for this, or were you actual active duty service or something like this?
No, I wasn't active duty. You work for the Department of Defense, but wasn't in the Navy.
That's weird. You should have been able to. Well, I don't know.
Well, that's
about
like a DoD contractor. Then.
Ideally, you should have been able to get like what's called your U.S. MAP certification, so you do get some credit for it at least.
I don't know. Yeah, both Donnie and I got. I don't know if I guess wouldn't call them charges, but written up for malicious mischief.
You never.
Yeah, and it got blown out of. It wasn't as big a deal as it was made to, and I'll tell you guys afterwards, but just it kind of got blown out of proportion, so I got in trouble for it.
You're joyriding one of those submarines around underwater?
Not exactly, but it was the work in that job was good because it helped make me more independent. Just because, the people that you work with and, working a steady job. It was right after high school. I can't say the job itself was enjoyable, but
You are roboting hard, sir.
well, you meet some guys and some funny. Yeah, because I still haven't dealt with this Wi-Fi out here because I forgot again. Like a old guy named Rasmussen that he got yelled at because he was smoking in one of the containment areas. It was outside, and then we would build containment areas to work in. And so when the supervisor comes back, he's in the containment area with this air-fed suit on, and he had cut a hole out of the front so he could smoke. And he yelled at me one time, "Slow down, you're making me look bad." There are some very lazy people that work for the shipyard. There was a saying that was popular: sweat on your time, shit on their time.
Boss makes $1 and I make a dime. Take a crap on company time.
Yeah. When I would park, there were times I would forget to pay for the parking out on the street.
Oh, you had to pay for parking? That's weird.
Yeah, well, it's parking outside the gate.
Oh. Yeah, you
But-
don't get on-base privileges to park.
No. But at the time, I was driving a 4x4, and the meter maid was kind of a short, full-figured lady, and I don't think she ever gave me a ticket because she couldn't reach my wipers to
Just
Slip
stick
the
it
ticket
in
up
because you
there.
were driving a big old truck.
because there was more than once that I forgot to pay, and I never got a ticket.
What do you do if you don't have wipers? Where do they put it?
I don't know.
They take a big old adhesive sticker or whatever and put it on your window. Ask me how I know.
But when they come by and mark your tire, you just rub the chalk off because they look to see if your tire has moved at all.
Oh, to make sure that you're not
Yeah, so if
leaving and coming back.
if you pay for a certain amount of time, and they mark you to see if the mark has moved, and then I can't remember if that was an hourly or daily rate, but they would mark, so they could tell if you had left and come back, or if you're just sitting there for longer than you're supposed to. Something like that.
So hypothetically, if you were to take anything from scrapping, what would it have been? Hypothetically. They give you permission. They say you can take anything you want. What is it?
If I could take anything I wanted, it'd probably be dials off the subs because they're just cool looking. There was a, I don't know if you'd call it a scrapyard. I don't know if it was run by the Navy or they bought it from the Navy, but it was all Navy stuff. You could buy stuff, you're not stealing stuff, you're buying it. I had bought a couple battle lanterns, which were really cool, but somebody when my car got broken into years ago. They stole top half of my engine, stole stereo, the speakers. I had 2 10-inch subs in the trunk, stole those. Took the battle lanterns and some other stuff that was in the trunk. But they're a yellow cube about that big with a handle on the top, and they'll light up a room, and they're really rugged. I dropped one off a second story deck and didn't even blink. It was on and it fell off the railing. They're some of the older Navy movies, you can see them on the wall, the big yellow cube. Those are the battle lanterns. But you could also buy, this was back in the 90s, early 90s. I remember they had asbestos blankets you could buy at the scrapyard. And they had signs, construction signs and stuff like that too. I don't think you can buy the asbestos blankets anymore, though.
Yeah, probably not. I think I'd want something from the launch tube. Some hardware off the door. I don't know.
Shoot tube 3. Aye, sir. Torpedo in the water. Torpedo in the water.
I put a hole in my
4.
shin working there. I was using a number 3 chipping gun. It looks like a mini jackhammer. And I had a kind of A-frame piece that I was taking graphite tile off. And, kind of came over, and it slipped. And it hit me in the shin. And I didn't realize it had punctured my shin. I still have a scar. It's about the size of I don't know, maybe about a quarter. But it kind of numbed my shin. Yeah, it hurt. It's like, God damn. So and then I went back to work and kept working for a little while. And it's like, God, this really hurts. And so I asked, somebody happened to be walking by me, and I'm like, hey, is there a first aid kit or something around here? And I look down, and I've got blood on the back of my boot. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, hey, you might want to go to the dispensary. That's when I realized I had put a hole, and I had missed my shin by probably a quarter inch. It would have shattered my shin if I had hit it with a bit. Went up to the dispensary and walked in, and the guy's like, "Oh, you need to go to the over to the other door." Went over the other door, showed him. It's like, "Hey, I did this." "Oh, no, you're supposed to go back to the other door." So I went back to the other door, and the dude's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it." And sitting and waiting, and I knew exactly what would happen when the nurse comes in. Nurse comes in, looks at it, and says, "Oh," and then sticks his finger in the hole. Yeah, thanks. And then calls the other nurses. "Hey, you got to see this." And it was a large enough wound that they said it was better just to leave it open. My shin went numb for probably a year after that. But, other than the hole and the numbness, luckily there wasn't any other damage.
I like Mike McClune's answer to whatever he could take off of submarine. Yep, that's pretty spendy stuff right now.
M. Gabriel is asking, aren't welder blankets still asbestos? I looked it up. They've discontinued that. They're using fiberglass.
That's interesting.
Yeah, if all it takes is, like a retractable pen, half of that metal part on the part that you push is your legal amount of exposure. is half that. Half a micron. That's the asbestos fibers are like half a micron. And when they enter your bloodstream, anywhere they go, your blood goes, it'll carry those fibers, and can cause cancer anywhere in your body.
But it's safe if they put in baby powder, right?
Well, there was pictures. They had when we're going through the classes, they had a book. They used to have snowball fights with the asbestos. In It's a Wonderful Life, the snow, that's asbestos. It's really kind of cool looking because it's a rock, but it breaks up into a fiber.
I remember one time we kicked a ball up so hard into the gymnasium at my school, because my school was built in the 50s, my high school that I went to, and they hadn't renovated it, and basically everywhere at the point in time when I went there we still had asbestos running around in the school, so I might be able to claim damages if I come up with cancer.
Up at Fort Worden, a friend and I were up there camping, and this was when we were in high school. We went down through the tunnels and we're going all around, came back up topside, and then we ended up behind this fence and went around the fence. And on the other side of the fence is where all the signs were that said keep out, because they, I guess, at some point had buried a bunch of asbestos on the other side of the fence, the side that we were on.
You can't catch whatever if you didn't read the sign, so by law, you couldn't be affected.
Yeah.
You also can't get cancer if you never go to the doctor. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't go to the doctor. He's just going to tell me stuff I don't want to hear anyway.
Exactly. And if you're not going to listen anyway, what's the point of going to the doctor?
Yeah.
They're practicing. All they can do is offer advice.
I tell my wife all the time, if you don't want to hear the answer, why'd you ask me the question?
Oh, man. Well, I'm just, but I finally determined what wins for me in terms of backing out in the woods. In terms of caliber, 10 mil versus 357.
What'd you pick?
I picked 357.
You can't go wrong.
I noticed that even though my accuracy with my SR 1911, my 10 mil, is a lot better, I can still tighten up my accuracy with my revolver because I still have a lot to learn. It's still a platform that I haven't gotten used to. But also at the same time, I'm looking around at my local stores, and there's not only reloading supplies in vast quantities, but there's also it's just easier to get off the shelf. And while there is some 10 mil, hard cast bullets and stuff like that, I do find, what's it called, the sights on my SR 1911, they're only driftable on the front and rear, side to side, whereas on my 686, I could actually account for elevation.
So when you have a cougar coming at you, you're going to be like, it's 5 feet from me. Let me adjust the elevation of my revolver.
Wait, this cougar is 5 feet tall?
Sure.
5'2" and eyes of blue. M. Gabriel said commercial pizza glass insulator produced clouds of being when being replaced. That's when we would have to remove fiberglass insulation off the subs and stuff. I would wear the PPE, the Tyvek suits and stuff, just to keep it off you, because it's awful. Woods said 357 every day, and Honcho Fett said.
I got a
17.
question about those submarines when you were taking them apart. What kind of pizza ovens are on a submarine?
Quiet ones. They're electric. The gas ones are too noisy.
Yeah, I want a wood-fired pizza oven, so I don't think I could handle that.
Yeah, that poses significant safety risk. A lot of our a lot of the military, Navy's fast attack submarines were diesel electric until we went full bore nuclear with the Los Angeles class. Diesel electric submarines are actually harder to detect than nuclear attack submarines because the diesel electric are a lot more quiet.
But there's a reason they call them pig boats.
Why?
Because they're stinky and smelly and dirty.
Yep.
And cramped.
They're
Did
not
you
They're not the best.
did you see the movie Down Periscope?
Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah, the Kelsey Grammer one.
Mm-hmm.
That's with the interior shots. That's twice as wide as what the old subs were. They were very generous with how roomy their sub was.
Yeah, diesel electrics, they tend to be really long, sleek, and narrow, whereas the nuclear ones, they're a little bit more. They have to compensate for the engine room and the reactor space, and so the gangways and the hatches, they're a lot generous and larger.
Honcho Fett asked, "What's long, hard, and full of semen?" A sub.
Da-da-da.
That's like the what's long and silver and lays in the grass. R2 doo-doo. I forgot what I was going to say. I messed myself up with a bad joke. Woods wants to know, Baron, have you or I been to the Russian sub at OSMI in
Oh, OMSI.
OMSI?
I was actually stationed on that sub back when I was a communist.
I thought that. I don't think that sub is a Russian sub. I think that's one of the decommissioned Seawolf class submarines.
I have not.
Neither have I.
I have to look at this, double check.
It has torpedoes that go out the back.
USS Blueback is what it is.
Brokeback Navy.
SS-581. It's a barbell class submarine. So I was wrong. That's an old class of submarine too.
Hachu says he has an interesting story about an Oscar II class sub. Yeah, Vanessa Kitty's out there. Right there. Good morning. He said K141 to be exact.
Top speed of 12 knot surface 25 submerged. That's really slow. But considering it was 1950s, it's not bad.
Guns Barbecue said that was a bad joke. Baron should have been based in historical fact.
Hmm.
You don't know your Hotori. Vanessa Kitty said, come to Groton and visit nuclear powered USN sub.
Visit the first.
Oh, the first nuclear powered sub. Mike McLuhan said dad was in the Navy, spent most of his time on floating islands in the USS Wasp primarily. I'm trying to remember the name of one of the subs that was scrapped. I think it was this. I think we scrapped the Stingray. I think it was the Stingray. It was one that we did.
Do you ever feel bad scrapping these pieces of history?
No, because when you like the Stingray, when you see them, they're half rusted out anyway. So they're trying to find a good. See if I can find a good picture of it. Well, that didn't help. Well, here's a picture of the Stingray. In sub terms, it's tiny. Vanessa Kitty said dad was in the Navy after World War II and beginning of Korean War. My dad was in the Army, and my stepdad was in the Navy. So I halfway grew up a Navy brat. And Hacho's giving the dimensions of the Stingray. Vanessa Kitty said my friend's dad was on the USS Converse. My friend Kevin, he was in one of the Take a Friend to the Range. His dad was on the Ohio, I think. He was the chief on the Oahu.
Oh, on the island of Oahu?
No, well, on the USS Ohio. The sub.
There was a battleship that was going to get the designation of the Ohio, but plans fell through. Plans included to have dual be mounted with 3 turrets, 2 guns per turret, 458 millimeter cannons.
Why did it fall through? Did they visit Ohio or something?
It fell through because eventually it was concluded that that after the end of the war, that aircraft carriers had basically made, battleships more or less obsolete.
Yes, and yeah. My stepdad, he was on the Kitty Hawk and the
Oh yeah,
Nimitz.
shitty kitty.
Yeah. And I got to ride the Nimitz from Hawaii back to Bremerton.
When was he on the Kitty Hawk? Vietnam?
No. He was in Vietnam. He was a Vietnam vet. I don't know what ship he served on. He was part of the rescue crews that would go pick up downed pilots in the water. But no, he was in the Kitty Hawk in the 80s.
Here's something funny. The nickname we gave the USS Kitty Hawk, the Shitty Kitty, it's also a slang name, according to Urban Dictionary, for a low-end brand of Canadian beer
Well, the Kitty, I think it was the Kitty Hawk and the Carl Vincent were not allowed to be in port together because those ships hated each other, and there'd always be fights between the crews.
Yeah. Rivalries tend to run pretty deep between other ships, depending on what type of ship.
Well, the Carl Vincent had a really bad reputation. There seemed to be a few gang members that would end up on a Carl Vincent. So the scuttlebutt said.
Good old Shitty Kitty, CV-63, decommissioned in 2009.
Do you know why they called it the Shitty Kitty?
Not necessarily, because I've never been on carrier, but I could tell you from what I've heard, the berthings and the showers and heads, especially the bulkheads, the walls. One thing you don't ever want to touch on, especially if you're in the shower heads when you're trying to take a shower and bathe, you don't ever want to touch the fucking walls. They're greasy and like all sorts of. I just have a shiver down my spine just thinking about it.
One of the things I didn't quite ever understand is the sinks. Next to the sinks, in the head, there was outlets, but they're not 120 outlets. So there's little signs that say "Don't plug your shaver into the outlets." I can't remember what they were, what voltage they were, but why would you put them next to the sink?
What was the question? You had two different outlet outages on the.
No, there was one voltage, but there was all above 120. So there's little signs that say "Do not plug in," like your shavers, electric shavers and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why put
an electrical outlet of such a high wattage right next to a sink?
So you can put the electrical fire out with water.
Beats me because the thing is, we always had a saying, you know, it was like, you know what doesn't make sense? And the answer always was the Navy. The Navy doesn't make sense because it doesn't have to. Primary reason also was though that there was also probably a big beef between the Vincent and the Kitty Hawk too, was that the Vincent was the new super carrier too. It was the new kid on the block. And so a lot of people were kind of really, a lot of the sailors were kind of real irritated with the new ship that people were getting assigned to it. It's like you get orders to the new car and you get to use it before all the other sailors do.
Oh, the new car being Camaro.
Yeah, and then but you're like 10th in line, and then once you get there, it's already beat to shit and it's rusted, and you gotta chip paint and repaint it and learn, get rid of, bust the rust off of the chains and bulkheads and the torpedo belt protection.
Wasn't the other nickname the Battle Cat?
I don't recall. So, yep, it appears so. There was Battle Cat, but a lot of people referred to it as the Shitty Kitty because, and it all depended on who was in charge too of the ship too. Like, if you had a really good captain, it was the Battle Cat. But if it was the real in charge of a real questionable commanding officer, it was the Shitty Kitty.
Probably wouldn't say it in front of them, though.
Oh no, and the thing is, even then, you could like, it's like everybody knows, like even the CO knows. It wasn't. It was the worst. It's one of the worst kept secrets of the Navy.
Well, the Kitty Hawk was the first U.S. naval ship to ever have a mutiny. I guess it's the last one, too.
Debatable, I think, because recently there was, because they tried I can't remember what ship it was, but I think it was the TR. During the COVID outbreak, they tried getting rid of Captain Kozer for disobeying a direct order for causing a mutiny. But eventually, because of what was going on with the pandemic and because Kozer sounded off the alarm and said, "Fuck you guys, I'm just gonna take it, release more information than I have to just to, shed some light on this issue." And it kind of pissed off the brass in the way that they shouldn't have, because what they were ticked off about is that the fact that because Kozer revealed that information, it revealed the fact that we had a supercarrier operating at a limited capacity in the 7th Fleet in that regard, and so that it kind of it showed hands in case something was going to happen, with China or whatever. But the thing is, that argument is highly irrelevant because the TR was really, really, really freaking far away from any sort of area to offer any sort of meaningful help if something ever happened to Taiwan during that time that event kicked off.
According to Wikipedia, the Kitty Hawk had a cameo in the final countdown.
Yep.
But one of my family's longtime family friends served in Nam as AK. They called him an aviation storekeeper. The rate was AK, and he was on the Kitty Hawk during that time.
Huh. There's a. I don't know.
Hey, but they
The
got rid.
there's a picture on the Wikipedia that I'm looking at. Kitty Hawk, and it's with the Turner Joy, and the Turner Joy is in Bremerton now, and you can take tours of the Turner Joy.
Mm.
And I clicked in and enlarged it, and I can't enlarge it.
Isn't the Kitty Hawk down in like Brownsville or something?
It's being
No.
scrapped.
It's been it was decommissioned in 2009.
I know, but it's being scrapped in Brownsville, I think.
I think the last of it was actually sent to the boneyard. Actually,
Iron Road, are you going through puberty again?
me?
Yeah, your voice keeps doing that drop down low thing. Comes back.
I was yawning.
Oh, is that what it is?
Ugh. Fuck.
Is Foss fact checking me?
No, I'm just scrolling.
Fact checking. Mike McClune, yeah, exactly.
On
Red
tonight's
Road.
episode of the Naval Quiz,
To answer your question, Pascal, Kevin, yes, he did try to go through the chain of command first, but the chain of command told him, "Too bad, you're on debt. Deal with it." It was the same attitude that my command got when I was deployed. I deployed to Okinawa, and thankfully I deployed to Okinawa because originally they had me set to go to deploy to Isa Bahrain, but I was a part of an aviation wing working on P3 Orions. With what command, I'm not going to divulge that. But long story short, we have to conduct fuel cell, or not fuel cell, but we have to pull fuel samples from the bird before the pilots are even allowed to take off on the plane. That's one of the steps and procedures. And they had forgot an important tool we called them candlesticks. And what it is it's just a little long metal tube. You screw a mason jar down on the bottom of it, and you plug the candlestick into one of the there's a high point and a bunch of low point fuel drains for the tanks. And you are supposed to, if you get you're only allowed like 3 bad samples in a row before you have to like down a bird or something like that. But because the birds that I was working on were so freaking old, we were just kind of ignoring that rule. And so, because Pacific Northwest and these birds are flying in hot and also arid climates, they're going to have a little bit of water at the end of the day, especially if you let them sit for 8 hours in operation. And they had forgot the candlesticks for the ESADET, and they had let Chain of Command know, and Chain of Command was like, "You're on debt, figure it out." So they did the next best thing, which there's at the nose of the plane, there's this hydrostatic test set, which is what the flight engineer uses to test fuel samples in case he wanted to test them for whatever reason. And so they were using that. The detachment in Turkey got canceled because of funding. So those guys got sent over to Bahrain, and they had candlesticks, so they could actually properly conduct fuel samples. Well, to our surprise, because we were using hydrostatic test sets for 3 months without using proper fuel cell or fuel maintenance, we were draining 80 gallons of water per tank out of each bird, or at least 2 of the 3 birds that we had over there. and maintenance wasn't happy with that, so they sent us to investigate my rate, which is workshop 120 airframes. And out in Isa Bahrain, it gets like a high of 116 to 120 degrees and a low of like 75, 80. And because it's a little island out in the middle of the Persian Gulf, it also gets really humid. And sometimes you'd wake up with the morning dew, morning mist.
Let me play this real quick. GearWebsites.com for all your 2A related t-shirts, patches, stickers, and whatnot. Also web consulting and design, 3D printing, patch sewing, you name it, he can probably hook you up. GearWebsites.com. DJ, are you still out there?
Yes, sir.
Plug away.
On Saturday evenings on the A Great Start Shooting School channel, there's a discussion about mental health and suicide prevention. Come check that out. I'll drop a link in the text chat. The Costly Conversations podcast channel is doing long-form conversations, and they'll clip out things now and again. Go ahead and check them out as well. And let's see. Guns and Barbecue, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and late night Sundays. Go to his channel. Also, some cool conversations that happen over there. So let's see you all again. Be safe, have fun, carry your guns, and rock.
Iron Road.
Nothing much for an update on the Oregon side of things, but we do got a pernicious bill that mimics 114 because I think the Democrats here in Oregon are kind of shivering in their boots, per se, that they think that 114 is not likely to pass constitutional scrutiny in the courts. So what are they doing? They're going to try and pass something through the legislature and make it illegal for you to even sue about it. That bill is called SB 358, I believe, as memory serves me correctly. There's your Congressman Tim Kloop out of Oregon's 5th District, I believe. He is what I would say is the linchpin vote that would deny this from passing. I don't know for sure, but if you guys want to keep your Second Amendment rights and try to keep your ability to pursue legal litigation for damages, highly suggest that you urge him to vote no on this bill. I don't have very much in the works for many videos, but I just kind of operate on my own schedule. Other than that, keep your updates with Oregon Firearms Federation. They are a good source of knowledge if you are an Oregonian and you are a 2A supporter in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, G-Webs, anything you want to plug? If you're out there. Out there.
Oh, G-Webs, oh, G-Webs.
He might be either busy or sleeping. So, Baron, is there anything you want to plug?
I would like to plug that the Second Amendment is for everyone. I see a lot of compromising out there in 2A spaces at the moment. I'm not liking that.
Yeah. Well, oh, God damn it, the banner.
Bruce Banner? Fuck Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
Not time for that yet, huh?
Well, I appreciate everybody that was out there chit-chatting out in the live chat. And those who maybe were out there listening but not saying anything, appreciate you too. If you watch this in replay, anything we talk about, agree with, disagree with, think we left out, leave a comment. I always read the comments, and they're always appreciated. And there would have been a email and a link that to contact, but you could join the Gilded server. There's a link in the description. Hang out, chit chat, share pictures, memes, and stuff like that. I think that's everything. Am I forgetting anything? Oh.
Yes,
that I know.
and it doesn't matter.
All right. So I hope everybody has a good rest of the night. Thanks for hanging out with us.